The world needs heroes to protect us from bad takes. There once was a man named Paul who said that Star Trek was better than Star Wars, and we can't stand for this type of injustice. Join the fight against bad takes and support the show over at multiplayersquad.com. But Josh, I'm scared of Patreon, but still want to help. What can I do? Well, future hero, you can now subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and get amazing rewards like 2 bonus episodes each week, early access, and ad-free episodes. Paul said it's more so that you don't have to listen to my terrible intros anymore, but we all know how bad his takes are. Now, on to the show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Multiplayer Gaming Podcast. We are so excited to have you guys with us today while we have a family-friendly discussion about gaming. Every other Monday, we have these kind of deep dive episodes, which are the bread and butter of what we do here. We pick a game, we jump into it, give it as much time as we can within the 2-week period, and then cover it on the show by talking about the mechanics, the storyline if there is one, what works for us and what doesn't. And we run through a couple of segments like community reviews, make love, marry, or murder, and we place the game on our leaderboard. Please consider supporting the show through Patreon by going to multiplayersquad.com or by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Our show depends on funding from listeners, so if you like what we do here and would like the show to continue, we would be very grateful for your help. All right, I am your host, Paul. As a lifelong Phoenix resident and Phoenix Suns fan, this is a very sad week as my favorite sports team just lost in the finals to the Milwaukee Bucks last night, but that's okay. I still have video games. It can be very therapeutic, as I've discovered here in the last 24 hours. And then joining me, I have my co-host. He doesn't care about basketball one iota, so he's in the best mood of his life. I'm a little jealous. Maybe I'm just going to swear off all Arizona sports from here on out. It's Josh.
You would be a wise man to do that, Paul. But I'll tell you what, man, I'm going to give you all my Dosh. We can go and kill some Zeds, and that'll definitely make you feel a little bit better.
Are you going to give me Dosh when I need it, or are you just going to throw it all on the floor on the last round when I already have everything upgraded?
Paul, of course I'm going to throw it down on the very last round when you don't need it.
Well, that's a very big hint to the game that we are covering today, so some of you might already recognize that. Of course, the name of the game is in the episode description. You guys already know ahead of time. But, we do have a new Patreon supporter to thank. And the username apparently is just his full name, so we're not trying to dox him intentionally. But thank you to new Patreon supporter Mark Workman.
Mark, you are a gentleman and a scholar. We would never forget to thank you. You should come on the Discord server and say hi, but even without that, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mark. You are our new favorite listener of the show. As we always say, it's always the last person who subscribed. They're our number one fan as far as we're concerned. All right. Well, we don't have really any other housekeeping here for today. Please remember to write a review for the show. We are trying to make a push for 250 reviews. And, we can see listener numbers. We have a fair amount of listeners. We know there's a lot of you out there who have not yet left a review. Even if it's just a 1-word review, that's great. Leave a review, rate us 5 stars. That'll help the show have a little bit more marketability as people search for podcasts. And, if you just want to write the word legendary and submit the review, that'll work.
That's perfectly fine.
And speaking of legendary, Josh, you know what that reminds me of?
Well, it reminds me of how we got to play this game this week, Paul.
Yeah, tell the people. How did we end up playing Killing Floor 2?
So we have a legendary tier on our Patreon, and part of the benefits of that tier are that you get to have some really awesome Discord benefits. We have said that once you are legendary, you are always legendary. So even if you stop your pledge at that point, you get to keep those perks. And if you become a legendary supporter, you get to pick a game for Paul and I to review.
And we have to review it.
And we have to review it. That's the deal we make. Hey, you support the show in that way. We will play the game that you choose. And so there was so much fun had with people trying to pressure Jake into picking Fortnite. We had a lot of Minecraft talk, as you and I both said, hey, we're not going to do Minecraft. There was just a lot of humor and stuff going on. People were like, hey, make them play Goat Simulator or Train Simulator. You know, all these different ideas were being thrown around, but Jake's a good dude. Jake said, hey, I want a game that's going to be fun for them to play and fun for them to talk about, but maybe isn't a game that everybody has heard of, which I personally really like that. And so he picked a game called Killing Floor 2. Now, had you ever heard of this game before, Paul?
I had not. I had not heard about it at all. As soon as I Googled the name, I was like, oh, this must be some kind of gory zombie game. I had not heard of it. So especially being the second entry of a series, I was kind of surprised. But this is actually a really successful series. I tried looking up the number of sales. The only thing I could find is that Tripwire says they have sold over 10 million units between Killing Floor 1 and 2 combined. So it is quite popular.
That's a lot of units, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had heard of this game. I had never played it, and I honestly didn't know what it was about. The only thing I knew about it was it was some kind of shooter, and that was it. I didn't know what kind of shooter. I didn't know anything other than that. And so we picked it up. We've played it for the last couple weeks. Jake has joined us for a few matches, which has been pretty cool. And so here we are, man. It was really cool to have Jake, you know, number one, support the show the way that he did. Number two, pick a game that you and I had not really ever, you know, seen before. To dive into this game without knowing anything about it was a lot of fun. Like most of the games that we talk about, we know about or we are hyped about before they release. So this was really cool in the sense that it took us completely by surprise.
Yeah, I tried to just jump in without looking up very much. So I just went on Steam, saw a couple pictures, bought it, and just started playing. And sometimes that's the best way to play a game or to watch a movie, not to see all the trailers and build up all this expectation. Just jumping in and playing was actually pretty fun. And it took off pressure of us having to kick back and forth a bunch of ideas of what we want to play. It was kind of nice that Jake was like, hey, I'm a legendary supporter. Here's what you're doing. And then we just did it. So yeah, huge shout out to Jake. Thank you so much. And thank you for not picking Fortnite. I'm very nervous the next legendary supporter is going to, but
hey, that's the deal we make. We have people talking about pooling their money together, you know, so to make us play Fortnite and stuff like that. All I can say is bring it, people.
Exactly. All right. Well, Josh, we're on the diving board. The water looks beautiful.
Oh,
let's do it. Let's dive into Killing Floor 2.
Belly flopping, buddy.
All right. So Killing Floor 2 released on November 18th, 2016. So we're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. And it was developed and published by Tripwire Interactive. I have a description of the game that I pulled from their website. The ones on Wikipedia and Steam are actually quite atrocious. So this one's a little bit longer than we normally read, but this will kind of put you in the right mindset for the game. In Killing Floor 2, players descend into continental Europe after it has been overrun by horrific, murderous clones called Zeds. Only a month ago, the first Zed outbreak from the original Killing Floor ripped through London. Now the specimen clones are everywhere. Civilization is in disarray, communication networks have failed, governments have collapsed, and military forces have been systematically eradicated. The people of Europe are now focused on self-preservation. The lucky few who survived have gone into hiding. But not all have given up hope. A motley group of civilians, soldiers, and mercenaries have banded together to fight the outbreaks from privately funded bases across Europe. When a specimen clone outbreak is detected, the players are sent into Zed-laden hot zones to exterminate all threats using whatever means necessary. Welcome to the Killing Floor.
Welcome.
That's a pretty epic description.
No, I'll be honest. I didn't know there was so much plot. this game.
I know, right? It's almost like the Star Wars crawl to start the movie, right? Like, I feel like that kind of tells you what happened in Killing Floor 1. It bridges the gap into 2. I mean, really at its core, it doesn't really matter. Like, we're just here to kill a bunch of angry clones that act like zombies. They are weird, ugly, murderous creatures. We've got lots of weapons and abilities, and we're just going to kill them by the hundreds. And that's what we're here for with Killing Floor.
It really is. I also had no idea that this took place in continental Europe, so today I am a wiser man.
Yes. All right, so like bird's eye view, Josh, overall, what is this game actually like?
This game is, the easiest way I can describe it is a horde shooter. I mean, if I'm boiling it down to the simplest terms, that's what it is. What's kind of funny is you and I did not know what this game was. So the first match that we joined, we got put into like this cave system, and we started just running around swinging our knives. And then we were very quickly overrun and killed. And we went, what? Like, what just happened, man?
I think we're doing something wrong.
Yes, it's so funny that now that we know what we know about the game, that was like the way that we tried to play it initially. But yeah, you know, it's an up to 6-person co-op shooter, like horde shooter. Like, it's not horde defense necessarily, because sometimes you need to like run through a level, but ultimately what they do is they will send wave after wave of these Zeds at you, and you have to survive each wave. But again, it's not holding a specific point on the map. It's just, hey, kill all of the Zeds in this wave. And then as you progress through the waves, they do tend to get a little bit harder and harder until ultimately you fight a boss. And if you kill the boss, you win that level. And as you clear each wave, you make money. And at the end of each wave, you can go to this trading pod and buy new weapons or armor or grenades or ammo and things like that. And that's really the overall flow of the game. And it sounds very, very simplistic, but there's an awful lot like under the hood on this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on a lot of the key things there. The game is first-person perspective, so you are aiming down sights and shooting the Zeds. Everybody has a self-heal, which is kind of nice. So we will talk a little bit about the different classes in just a minute, but everyone does have the ability to shoot. Everyone has the ability to heal, and the game does let you buy some pretty inventive weapons along with armor, grenades, things of that sort. The one thing that is in the game that doesn't really get utilized very much is that you can also pull out like a little personal welder, and you can actually block certain paths to kind of try to herd the Zeds down certain pathways. But eventually they do break their way through the doors. So a little bit of the game is figuring out where you are going to attack or where you're going to defend. And if you stay together as a group, it definitely improves your likelihood of passing the level. All right, so Josh, would you say that there's any natural comparisons to any other games as far as like a frame of reference?
I feel like it's a little bit like Vermintide. You know, in that sense, because you're fighting just mass amounts of monsters while you are progressing through a level. It is a little bit different, but I do get that kind of Vermintide feel, except that it's guns versus melee. A little bit of Left 4 Dead vibe in there as well, with just the, you know, trying to survive the different waves and the level itself until you come across like a boss or something. Yeah. And then, I mean, I have to point out the music in this game, because I think the first time we ever started playing, I said this game is like Doom meets Left 4 Dead. Because there is just this amazing heavy metal soundtrack that is in the background, and it is so good, and it just really amps you up for everything that's going on. And it's funny because Jake had kind of mentioned to us, he said, hey, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think he said it was his cousin that did the music for this game. And I remember telling him, like, dude, I get Doom vibes off of this because it's terrific. And that heavy metal just fits so well with what's going on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's very atmospheric. And when we start to talk about some of the maps and some of the humor in the game, all those things really feed into it. I think that those are some pretty good comps, other than the fact it's just first person as opposed to Left 4 Dead or Vermintide. Well, I guess Vermintide's first.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, even though this might sound a little bit odd, it reminded me a lot of Payday. So it's where it's more of like an arcade shooter. This game is not like a very realistic shooter where you're going to get shot 7,000 times every mission. It's just the nature of the game. You are killing them by the hundreds. The ragdoll physics of the Zed body parts are flying everywhere. It's kind of campy in that regard, but you are basically just playing these levels that last anywhere from maybe 10 minutes if you do a 4-wave scenario, all the way up to maybe 20, 25 minutes for a 7-wave scenario. And you're basically just repeating these while swapping out gear, swapping out classes, and it keeps the game pretty replayable and fun because there's a lot of stuff that you can swap around as you play. So let's talk a little bit about those classes that you can play, and Killing Floor calls them perks. There's actually 10
weird.
of them.
Is that not weird that they
name.
call the classes perks? Like, I thought that was a little strange. It took me a minute to get used to that because I was like, well, yeah, I want perks. Like, how do I activate those? And it's like, oh, no, wait, the perks are the characters.
Yeah, perk you think like attribute, right? Like a characteristic of your character. Yeah, so they call them perks. There's 10 of them. They are Berserker, Commando, Demolitionist, Field Medic, Firebug, Gunslinger, Sharpshooter, Support, Survivalist, and SWAT. First of all, those are great names.
They really are.
As soon as you see them, it make you excited.
I want to play every single one of them.
Yeah. The only one that's a little lame, I think, is maybe SWAT. But I am fully on board with like Berserker, Commando, Demolitionist. You're really talking my language with those kinds of names.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, each of these perks have their own complete starting loadout. So you start out with a main weapon along with a pistol and a melee weapon and some kind of consumable, whether it's like a healing grenade, which releases healing gas, or like a frag grenade or a freeze grenade, something like that. And then basically you level these classes completely independently of one another, and they all rank from 0 to 25. And so anytime you hop in a match, you get to choose which one you want to play, and you can even change that in between rounds. They only let you change once every round, but you can even play multiple classes or multiple perks within each level. And then every 5 levels, you get to pick a certain talent because there is a skill tree for each character.
Yeah, and each character has like a built-in like innate trait as well. So some of them, like, I think the sharpshooter gets like bigger headshot damage. I played the Firebug at first, which, has burn damage, and you don't take damage from your own fire and stuff like that. I think the one of the classes, maybe the Commando or the SWAT, has a faster natural reload speed, but there's like these traits that you get from, level 0, and then each class has a way of getting experience within that class. So for instance, I played Firebug at first because I was like, well, who doesn't want to torch, all these guys?
Right.
And the way that the Firebug levels up is you need to kill the Zeds with fire damage. And so if I was using a pistol, I was not progressing my perk. Now I was killing things and, doing that, but I actually had to be using a fire weapon to get XP in that perk. So I thought that was kind of cool because it's kind of like saying, hey, here's your job. If you want to level up and get these talents for this job, you kind of need to play your job the right way, because the classes, I'm just going to call them classes because calling them perks is just weird.
Go for it. Yeah. Classes.
But the classes do play fairly differently. Now, I am the kind of person where I will pick one class and then I will just max that out as much as I can. But I did wind up playing 2 in this game, even though there was 10. And you had tried, I think, like 2 or 3.
I played a little bit of all of them.
Oh, did you? Okay.
But I only seriously leveled 2 of them. I primarily played Commando and Support, which Support immediately drew me in because they start out with a shotgun. And the very first levels that we played, we never picked the map. We just let the game choose it randomly. But they were very tight corridors. And what better thing than a shotgun? So I kind of fell in love with the shotgun early on. Later, I switched to Commando a little bit because their innate ability is that they can see stalkers, which are normally invisible, and they kept attacking me, and I was getting so fed up that I just jumped over to Commando. But then Commandos start out with this full auto AR-15, and I ended up growing to love the Commando as well. So I was going to ask you, what was your number one favorite class to play?
I liked the Firebug. Honestly,
Firebug.
The starting weapon for the Firebug is hilarious, number one. It is a caulking gun that spews out flames, and it looks like your guy is holding a caulking gun. Like, it's just, you're running around with this. It's got 2 tubes of caulking in there, and it just, I guess you squeeze the trigger and it's got like a little lighter in the front. It's, it's like the dumbest homemade flamethrower ever. But you just run around and you torch all these Zeds, which is, it's hilarious. And one of the cool things about this game is when you cook something, it actually starts to get crispy. So if we'll talk about the monsters in a little bit, but if I'm torching this clown looking monster, like, he starts to look like a burnt marshmallow. And I was just like, that is awesome, man. Like, how cool is that? And then they just get some cool perks where if I shoot the fire on the ground, it burns 3 times hotter and it snares the Zeds. So I found myself doing that a lot. But yeah, I thought the Firebug had some of the more unique weapons. I had a lot of fun with it. I did play the Berserker a good bit, which is a melee only class, which is very strange because you and I got wrecked trying to do melee in the very first time we played it. But the Berserker winds up getting really tanky and is supposed to just be in the fray. I didn't find it as fun because melee is just kind of in this game, but it was kind of neat to play 2 vastly different classes. What about you? You started off with support, if I remember right.
Yeah, support ended up being my favorite for a couple of reasons. First of all, they unlock a trait, I think at level 10, it's very early on, where you get to increase your health pool from 100 to 150. And so it makes it an awful lot easier to stay alive when you have a very small group. So that's one thing that's kind of funny with Killing Floor. You can play all the way up to 6 people. We tried some rounds with just the 2 of us where we would struggle. But if we ended up with these groups of 6 with highly seasoned veterans of the game, it was kind of a cakewalk. So a little bit was kind of like trying to find the right group size with the right leveling. And I really liked support, not only because it gave me more health, but their perk is that your teammates can run up and get extra armor from anyone who plays support. And that's a really cool thing because that would always make me kind of excited when I would see certain teammates, if they had a perk that if they had a trait that was going to help me. I think we both got excited whenever we saw Demolitionists.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yep. Yeah, you can get grenades by standing next to the Demolitionist, and I feel like it refreshes maybe once every 30 seconds or something like that. But if you're standing next to them, it's just, hey, press F to, take a grenade. And it doesn't actually, steal it from them. It's almost like they're just handing it out. So it's like they're almost this walking grenade factory. And then there's another one that is the ammo, right? Mm-hmm. So that was, me always screaming at you, Paul, where are you at? I need more ammo. I need ammo, Paul. Where are you? And so you'd come running over and then I'd get ammo. But yeah, and so the classes really do matter and the perks do matter. And, I thought that was really neat. When you did have a 6-pack of people and you were getting grenades, on the regular, you were getting ammo resupply, which was really nice. You had somebody that was healing you if you got hurt. You've got a demolitionist that's just grenade launching everything. You've got a firebug that's just flamethrowing everything. And this game just gets real chaotic real quick.
Yes, in a very good way. Some games can get really chaotic where it's frustrating. This game has these built-in maps where there are multiple ways into every room, and you kind of all have to stay grouped while also constantly looking behind you, trying to have everything covered. But even then, monsters will sometimes drop out of a hole in the roof that you don't necessarily see, and all of a sudden they're behind you, and it's kind of chaotic. But the fights are incredibly epic in scale. You'll have some waves that are a couple hundred enemies and you get a counter and it'll tell you how many Zeds are left in the current wave. And I thought that was always really neat because that kind of helped you know how quickly to burn through ammo or if you needed to be conservative and how to use those things together. So let's talk a little bit about the weapons, because I think this is probably the thing that keeps the game the most interesting.
It's definitely where it excels.
Oh yeah, 100%. So like Josh mentioned, you earn your money, you get to spend it in between waves, and what happens is your class has specific guns or equipment designed for that class, but you're not locked into that. You can buy and use any gun in the whole game. So even if you're playing as a firebug, if you just decide, hey, I don't want to switch my class, but I want to pick up a sniper rifle, it might not be the best decision, but the game does let you do it. You have full control over what you use. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the weapons that you ran across?
Yeah, and this is one thing that is probably one of my favorite parts of the game is each class has its own list of weapons for purchase, and they fit that class. So for instance, like the firebug, all of my weapons were fire-based damage, but I had things from like revolvers that shot like little flame bursts, to full-fledged flamethrowers, to this husk cannon that shot these glowing fireballs, a rifle that would shoot plasma. Like everything was based around fire because it fit the class, right? And so, as long as you're using one of the weapons for your class, you're generally getting experience as well. And then with the Berserker, because they're melee based, like all of the weapons when I played Berserker were melee weapons, from just a bat, to a katana, to this pulverizer hammer where if I right clicked, I would smash something, but then it would explode this like charge almost to do extra damage, to a healing baton to where I could sit there and just melee things, but then I could whack it with the right click and it would burst heal like everybody around me. I mean, these weapons are bananas, man. Like they really are. And they're so unique amongst the classes. Now, I did not play a ton of the standard shooter type classes like the commando and the SWAT and stuff like that. And I do know that there is a little bit of overlap, but I feel like those weapons are still fairly unique to the character that you pick.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of overlap. Like probably my favorite gun in the game, ironically, is not even one of the higher expensive ones. So you can buy some guns earlier in a round because it might only cost like 650 Dosh. Other ones cost as much as 2,000. And my favorite for support was the M16, because most guns have an alt fire, and sometimes it's as simple as switching between single fire and full auto or burst fire and full auto. Well, the M16, the alt fire, shoots grenades. And so in between rounds, I would have to buy not just ammo for my M16, but I could buy up to 14 grenades. So I would have my default 5 grenades that I could throw, plus 14 in my gun. Playing with a demolitionist, I'm just using grenades the whole time. Everything's exploding. The body parts of the Zeds are filling the screen. They're flying up into space. I thought it was so much fun. That's the thing that this game does. They are not going for any level of realism. They're just going for pure glee. You're really just here to shoot stuff. It's bloody. It's violent. It's chaos. And it's just super fun. Yeah,
they are not trying to be anything other than just go and slaughter these things by the thousands. Have a great time doing it. Here, have 15 different guns that you can pick from that are unique to your character that all play very differently. You want a shotgun with incendiary ammo? Here you go. You want some high-tech fusion rifle that's going to shoot laser flaming like lasers through these things. There you go. You want a buzz saw that you can shoot saw blades from.
Yeah.
Or, if you hold right click, you just like chainsaw through enemies and chop off body parts and stuff like this. That's what this game is. It's just pure, simple fun of just carnage, man.
Yeah. It doesn't have to make sense, right? Like, if you play as the field medic, I can chuck grenades that give off blue gas that magically heals everybody almost instantly. It doesn't matter if it makes any sense. It's just fun. It's very arcade-like in that regard. This game has a ton of stuff that we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on. There is a gear tab in the game where you can choose your character. So not only do you have your class, but you can change what character you're playing while you're running around in this world. and they have different looks, different personalities, different voice lines. Even within the characters, you can change their emotes, their outfits, their accessories. I loved running around as Reverend Alberts. He was this like Scottish guy running around.
Sounded like
quoting,
Sean Connery. Straight up.
Like Sean Connery, yeah.
I would be running by and I'd hear you, like, your character would be like, I think that's all of the Zeds.
I was going to say, I cannot do a Scottish accent, but he's like, we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against the evil and darkness. And he's like quoting the Bible and we're running around.
Of armor.
Yeah. He's clearly dressed like a reverend with a cross necklace and he's running around fighting these Zeds. I mean, you can even play as like a robot as one of the characters. I mean, it just adds to the hilariousness of this game. You can unlock tons of weapon skins. You can unlock cosmetics, new emotes. There's an in-game shop, which is, it's there. I don't think you or I spent any money inside the game, but I did want to get a little bit into the maps. So this game has a whopping 34 maps.
That's insane.
There are so many options.
I don't think we played every map, and we played a pretty good bit, and I feel like we saw maybe 12, 15 of the maps.
Well, some of them are very popular. So everyone in the group has a chance to vote for the map. And I definitely noticed Elysium in particular. That was like, anytime we ended up with 6 people, you'd have at least 3 of them vote for Elysium. You and I were kind of just randomly picking them and hoping to see others. But were there any maps that stuck out to you in particular?
The Christmas map, man. We've got, I mean, I know we're going to talk about the different Zeds here in a little bit, but there apparently was a huge like Christmas DLC or expansion. And we got like a Santa's Workshop map one time.
Yep.
That was the most holly jolly map that you could imagine. I mean, there are lights and Christmas trees and presents and ornaments and snow everywhere. And then all of the Zeds were completely Christmas themed and were absolutely bonkers. You and I were cracking up at how ridiculous some of these monsters were in this map. So all of it put together was just incredible because I felt so Christmassy while we were slaughtering things by the thousands, man.
Well, you even left out what was really cracking me up is that in the game, they're playing Christmas carols, like on the in-game radio. So it's like you're playing these levels and you're hearing these like epic choir renditions of Oh Holy Night while you're taking a flamethrower to all of these Zeds. It was so funny. We were escorting bombs that were sitting on top of sleds
to go kill Krampus.
Yeah, to kill Krampus. And so here, it would be marked like, do not open until Christmas. And it's clearly just this giant bomb that we're escorting, to fight Krampus at the end. I mean, that one for me definitely stuck out. I also thought that the Moonbase map was really neat because the gravity was completely different.
Yeah.
So like on the Moonbase, if you jumped, you would go up in the air like 4 times higher than you normally would. But the game also has like daily quests and stuff that you can complete. And I noticed that one of mine was to kill people while up in the air while on Moonbase. Because I don't normally jump a whole lot in these games, but as soon as Moonbase started, I was jumping and shooting guys in the air and I realized, oh, that's actually really cool. So I was, raining down with all of my grenades from flying up in the air. So I thought Moonbase was pretty neat too.
There was the Castle Rave level. Do you remember that one where
the DJ out on the balcony? Yeah.
I mean, he was jamming too, man. He had the turntables and everything. This game has an amazing sense of humor built into it, and that comes through in some of the levels. The only thing I'll say about the levels is they seem very well designed. Again, I mean, there's an absolute ton of them. The only thing that I have an issue with level wise is that I'm not really paying attention to everything as we're running past, because you have to move through the levels to get to the trading pods, right? So you fight a wave and then the announcer comes on and he or she says, hey, the trading pod's been opened, and you get this little path, like this lighted arrow that kind of points you to where the trading pod is. And it's usually a 10-second run, and the trading pod is only open for like 40 seconds. So you make this mad dash to the trading pod to hurry up and try to buy something. And so you're running through the level really fast without really paying attention. And then when the buy period is over, the next wave comes and you're just kind of looking around for Zeds again. And so I almost feel like you're kind of missing out on some of the cool aspects of these level designs because it's just so chaotic that you're not really paying attention to a lot of it.
I'm sure there's a ton of stuff that we would appreciate. You just don't really have time to stop and smell the roses because there's just too much going on.
Right.
Yeah. And talking about the humor of the game, the narrator. Dude, the narrator that comes on and talks to you in between waves is hilarious because that is like custom voice lines depending on your performance in the last round. Yes.
And there's also different types of announcers. Like the most popular one is the lady. The lady announcer, she sounds like maybe she's got an underlying British accent or something, but she'll tell you, she'll be like, you were the MVP that round. You carried the rest of your team. Or if you get hurt and you almost die or you do die, she'll tell you like, hey, dead people don't make as much money. Try harder next time.
Yeah. No, they'll get really sarcastic where if you died in the last round, but you survived this time, they're like, oh, wow, you actually survived this time. Like they'll make little comments that are sometimes passive aggressive. And I always just thought it was absolutely hilarious. The whole idea of the narrator providing like live commentary was a really funny idea.
The best part was we got a map where it was some like apathetic guy that was super grouchy. And he was just cracking us up because he was trolling you the entire time, like talking about how terrible you are, how much he hates his job. You're the worst to have to watch fight, like, all this stuff going on. And we were just like, both of us were like, are you hearing this? And you're like, yes, like it was just awesome, man. I love the humor in this game. And I mean, that even comes through in the Zeds. That Christmas level, we have to talk about it a little bit, but the normal Zeds in this game are these creepy, I didn't even realize they were clones. But I mean, there's a huge variety too. You've got these creepy clowns in full clown outfits with razor sharp teeth. You've got these crawly things on the floor that don't have legs that just kind of crawl their way towards you. You've got these things with 20 swords and axes stuck through their bodies that are melee. You get the invisible people that you said you hated.
Yeah, the stalkers.
The stalkers.
You get the bloaters.
Oh, the big fat clown bloater guys. Yeah, those are another clown thing, but they puke all over you. Mm-hmm. And then you get into kind of like the mini boss type mobs where you have what do you call the tambourine monkey or the cymbal monkey?
They are called Skrakes, which I would not have known because we just called them monkeys because they've got the monkey face.
I had no idea that's what the game called them. But yes, it's your basic like cymbal monkey that is of gigantic proportion and has these chainsaw blade hand things
that hit like a truck.
Right? Yes. You don't want to get hit by one of those. And then you've got these berserker guys that have these spikes all over them and they'll spin around. And if you get real close to you, they'll wreck you. I mean, that's not even counting the actual boss, like final bosses of each level. So what this Christmas level did though, is they took all of these Zeds and then they turned them into like gingerbread men and elves and like marshmallow, like Frosty, these berserk looking scary Frosty the Snowman guys. Like,
dude, seeing these gingerbread men like with their stiff limbs and you just shoot them in the head and their cookie head just pops off and they're still walking. It was so funny. I did not expect this kind of game to have this level of humor. I mean, it's all hilarious. I mean, not every map is like that. A lot of them are serious. I guess what they did is they took a bunch of user-made levels because we didn't even touch the Steam Workshop. There's a ton of custom-made content for the game, but they ended up adopting some of these things as official maps. And so I don't know if Santa's Workshop is one of those, but to me, it feels like something that maybe the community made and submitted because it's just too funny.
It's so good. And I love the fact that they incorporated it into the game. you and I were just cracking up because we thought we had seen it all, and then an evil Frosty the Snowman comes waddling on out, a twisted gingerbread man, and I'm playing the Firebug, and so I'm flamethrowering these guys, and the gingerbread man starts looking like a burnt cookie.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I feel like this is the kind of game you get the sense that the people really enjoyed developing it. Like, clearly they must have been like whiteboarding ideas, and someone's like, oh yeah, make them look like burnt toast when you hit them with the flamethrower, and then they must have just laughed and then put it in the game. It feels like a labor of love, this kind of game, because it's so focused on gameplay. They don't get bogged down in the specifics. Just throw out a fun game that's going to be highly replayable, and the people are going to love it. If I did want to knock the game in one area, I think it would be about the bosses. So just like the money, I don't know why money has to be Dosh and classes have to be perks. The bosses are called specimens, so that's the official term, but there are only 5. There's Dr. Hans Volter, the Patriarch, King Fleshpound, Abomination, and Matriarch. And that's why you and I kept saying, oh, we're getting this boss again. It's because there's only 5.
Is it really? I felt like there was more than that, but you might be right.
It's only 5. Yeah.
And the boss fight, the bosses are no joke, man. Now, you and I made the mistake of trying to play this game, just the two of us initially, and we could make it through most of the waves. I feel like the waves do scale depending on how many people are playing. So if you have like a full 6-pack, there's going to be like 200 Zed per wave. But when you get to the bosses, they're not any easier or harder depending on the number of people you have. So 2, we got wrecked like over and over again. And that was, we finally got like a full 6-pack, and then it was way easy. The boss just went down like super quick, like barely anybody died. The boss fights are a lot of fun, and they're definitely varied. But yeah, I do wish that there was a wider variety, because we did get the same boss like the last 4 matches that we played. And I remember asking, like, is the game broken? Like, does it not realize we keep getting the same guy over and over, or what's happening here?
Yeah, it's because we're only randomizing between 5, but they all do have their own little unique things. So one of the specimens, if you kill the ads, they get angrier and more aggressive, and they're going to do more damage. Others will run off and they'll actually heal themselves. So, every boss you fight a little bit different, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. I mean, this is a game where you just chuck all your grenades and just start unloading all of your ammo, and the bosses go down relatively quickly. But that's the one thing that I would say is maybe just a little bit underwhelming. I kind of wish that there were maybe like 10 to 12 specimens, and it would kind of keep things a little bit more fresh. But do you have any strong thoughts as to the replayability of this game?
No, I mean, it is simple in its nature. It's a horde shooter, and even though there's a ton of different levels, you are still fighting the same types of monsters, even if they have Christmas skins and are making you laugh while you're shooting them. So it's not a game that I see having a ton of longevity, but it's the kind of game where you don't mind ever hopping in and playing for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, because it's just simple fun, right? Like, it's not complex. There's not these big in-depth systems and things like that. You do have all of the different character classes that you could level up, but ultimately those are only small differences. So if you don't like just shooting hordes and hordes of monsters, then this game's going to get old for you pretty quickly. But it's just so simple in its execution, and it's done so well in that simple execution that it's one of those things where I wouldn't ever mind popping in and just playing a round or two.
Yeah, it's fairly casual in that regard. It's not to say that the game is terribly easy, because it can be difficult if you're playing on hard and you have 2 noobs that are level 0 berserkers who don't know what we're doing. But the game does have some optional missions, if you will, during the game. So they might say, go stand your ground inside this pink area, and then you're going to earn extra money. I do wish that the game had maybe a little bit more variety. Maybe it would be like, one player can't shoot, but they can pick up, and now you've got to like transport this item. Or, maybe some things more in that regard that would keep the levels a little bit more interesting as opposed to just complete mindless fighting. There's not a whole lot of real strategy, even on hard. We all kind of learned as long as everyone's paying attention, then you're going to be able to beat the missions. So maybe just something to break up a little bit of that monotony. But I see this as being a game you can easily get 100 hours out of, just trying the different classes and running them. And if you really like this game and you want to level everything, if you max a class, you can prestige it back to 1 and level it again and unlock special cosmetics. You could definitely sink a lot of hours into it. I mean, there's a reason why we never had trouble finding groups, even though it's a 5-year-old game.
That was crazy to me.
Strong community.
Honestly, I was very impressed by the fact that if we started a match and just left it open to matchmaking, that within just a couple minutes, we would have an extra 2 people in. And then as soon as 2 people joined, you had a full group that was playing the entire match and likely the next match as well. I could not believe how easy it was to fill a group.
Yeah, crazy easy. All right, so that's what we think about Killing Floor 2. Josh, you got some community reviews from Steam?
I do. So this game's been out for a while. There were a lot of reviews to pick from. This first one is recommended. This guy has 168 hours on record. And so here's the review. It says, do you like killing zombies? Dis got zombies. Do you like realistic weaponry? Dis got realistic weaponry. Do you like wacky weaponry? Dis got wacky weaponry. Do you like challenging difficulty levels? This is seriously some of the greatest difficulty modifiers ever. Each step of difficulty gives the Zeds more movesets, like dodging, introduces new Zeds, and makes them run faster in addition to other modifiers. And I like that review because it's true, right? There are your M4 or M16s, there's your pistols, there's your AK-47s, but then there's your chainsaw guns and your laser rifles. And at one point, I remember I got really excited because when I was the Berserker, I got a lightsaber. Some guy had bought DLC and it shares it with the rest of your group. And so I had this lightsaber and I was just like, Paul, look at my lightsaber, Paul. And then I'm chopping everything up with that. It doesn't take much to get me excited, but
dude, this game even has like shotguns where the alt fire heals your teammates. So when you were saying realistic weapons, it's got it. I was like, well, hold on. But then he said wacky and I was like, okay, there we go. Because, I'm shooting people in the face with healing shotguns and it's giving them life. So yeah, you get the realistic and the wacky. I love it.
All right. So this next one is a not recommended 265 hours on record.
Okay.
Chock full of paid DLC and reused content, but Tripwire tends to do that, so I knew what I was getting into. It was better when it just started and they hadn't had the opportunity to jump the shark yet. And so here's when I'm looking up negative reviews, this is a huge common theme for the negative reviews, and that a lot of people got very upset at the developer for the amount of DLC that they added to this game that was paid DLC. And you kind of get that sense from the very beginning. As soon as you load in to the game, to the menu where you can actually start matchmaking, I felt like I was just assaulted with ads, you know what I mean? Like about let's not really ads, but hey, here's this new summer package and you can buy this for this amount. And I remember getting these drops and it was like the crates from PUBG where you had to spend $2.50 to buy a key to unlock the crate. And it did have that very in your face, like, hey, we have tried to monetize the crap out of this game. And all of the DLC is geared towards making you spend lots and lots of extra money for cosmetics. It doesn't bother me because we didn't know any different. But I guess if you had this game and then slowly saw it change into that, it's almost like it was a super gaudy storefront, right? Like just everything's jingling and blinging in your face and saying, hey, spend extra money. And there was a lot of people that took offense to that. And you can tell they kind of review bombed the game a little bit because of that.
Yeah, it's easy to ignore the DLC. Who cares? The base game's great. You don't need any of it. And if you don't want it, the game's fine without it, honestly.
Yep. I mean, we didn't buy any DLC and we had a blast with it. So, okay, so this one is recommended. This guy only had 9 hours on record, but he said it's the multiplayer that Doom should have been.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
And
yeah.
I mean, I kind of agreed with that because like I said in the beginning, the music reminds me of Doom. The slaughtering, these Zeds are almost like demons sometimes. And so, you definitely get that Doom vibe, especially with the gore and the body explosions and stuff like that. Like it's a hyper violent game. But I did get that. I really liked that review because it kind of hit the nail on the head there. So, and then, okay, another, not recommended. This guy has 86 hours on record. Rinse and repeat kind of game. Plain and simple, aim and shoot, walk in the park, collect and spend. And so, after I think almost 90 hours, this guy got kind of tired with the gameplay loop. And I mean, you got 90 hours out of this game, and we haven't said how much this game costs yet, man. So that's quite a deal.
Yeah, I feel like if you get 90 hours out of it, you should be ecstatic, even if it's a full $60 game. So that's a little crazy. Is it a little rinse and repeat? Yeah, of course. Any horde shooter is going to have elements of that. I feel like in this case, Tripwire adds enough that it keeps fresh and interesting far longer than most horde-based shooters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's so much to do between the various guns, the classes, the levels, the themed levels, all that stuff. It's definitely got some staying power as far as that goes. All right, Paul, that's what the community thought. Now it's our turn, buddy. We have to guess what we think the overall review score is for Killing Floor 2. Game's been out a while. What do you think?
So, once I found out that this game was pretty popular, selling 10 million copies, I think most people do like it. I think you're going to have some hate on the rinse and repeat. I think that the overall user score is going to be 85%.
Dude, you and I are getting to where we are always within a few percentage points of each other. I followed right along with you. It's an enjoyable game. It's a little bit older. The graphics are still good. The music's great. There's really not a ton to not like about it. The mechanics are crisp and sharp and all that. Is it phenomenal? Is it going to stand out? No, I don't think it is. But is it plenty enjoyable? Yes. So I said 88%.
Oh, okay.
So
I have no idea what the answer is.
The answer is actually 85%, Paul.
Are you serious?
You aced it, buddy.
You know what's funny? I did not look up the answer, but initially I wrote down 87. But over the course of us talking, I decided to ding it just a little bit because of the rinse and repeat. Wow, so 85 on the dot,
85 on the dot, man. I thought I did good when I wrote my score down and then I saw it. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm only 3% away, man.
I feel like we've nailed it on the head like 3 out of the last 5 or something.
We've
been
getting pretty
really
good
close
at this. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently after you do 51 games, you start to learn it a little bit.
All right, Paul.
So, let's
time to get romantic,
go ahead, DJ.
Buddy.
Yeah, hit that track. Hey there, Zed. Is there an airport nearby, or is that just my heart taking off? All right, this segment is called Make Love, Marry, or Murder. This is a little bit of a game where Josh and I decide to rate the game in one of those areas. Is this a game that we want to pledge our undying love and commit to it for long term? Is this just a short-term fling that we're going to pick it up and enjoy it for a bit and then ultimately move on? Or is it a game that we want to murder? Josh, why don't you go first?
This one's pretty easy for me. It's a make love. There's plenty to like about this game. The simplicity of it and the rinse and repeat of it, I think would keep me from playing it long term and being a marry. But I'll put that caveat down. It's like I said before, if somebody was like, hey, do you guys want to hop in and just play a round of Killing Floor 2? I don't think there would be too many occasions where I would say like, no, I don't want to do that. It is a simple, casual, fun game to play. Does not require a lot of thought or effort. A lot of games I instantly uninstall after we're done playing it because I just know that I'll never play it again. This is one of those
Right.
games that will probably stay in my library for a couple months. I may not play it a whole lot, but it's just one of those, like, I'm not going to just uninstall it instantly because it is fun to jump into from time to time. Will I ever play this game by myself without friends? No. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, honestly, it's just fun with people to talk to and stuff like that. But it's a pretty easy make love for me. There's a lot to like about it. I just don't see it being a long-term marry for me.
Okay. I only disagree with you slightly. I am going to rate it a marry. However, I think this game is a great first marriage, if you get my drift. Like, I'm going to call around and consult with all the divorce attorneys in town, you know, because you're going to have to prep for the eventual divorce. So I am going to marry it, but I don't know that it's necessarily the strongest marriage. I can kind of be talked into marry or make love, but for me, I think it's going to be just slightly more on the marry side. So that's where I'm going to put it.
So just a little bit more longevity is what you're saying, but with an eventual divorce.
Exactly. I would not mind popping into this by myself. If we weren't doing the show where we have to move on to the next game, I would have no problem putting another 50, 60, 70 hours into Killing Floor. I like it a lot. If Killing Floor 3 comes out, it'll absolutely be on my radar to play it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun. That's kind of the thing that's hard to quantify is this is one of those games where, again, nothing is phenomenal, but nothing is bad. But ultimately, it's just a simply fun game to play.
I think that's a great way to word it. If you were curious to know about price, Josh and I lucked out and bought it on Steam sale. The full price is $30 for the game. However, if you are willing to just Google for a Steam key of this game, you can certainly get it around $10. I think Josh and I each got it for right around $7.
I paid $4 for mine from a third-party website.
I think mine was $7.29 or something like that. It was very cheap, single digit.
It really is. It's so
Very
worth
well
picking up
spent.
for that price. There's really not a reason to not try it out if you can get it for that cheap.
Yeah, 100%. I agree wholeheartedly. All right, Josh. Well, let's go on to our leaderboard segment, see where this game stacks up. All right. So for anyone who might be tuning in for the first time on a deep dive episode, Josh and I have now deep dove. Is that the past tense?
I think
of
it's
deep dive?
divin.
We've deep divin.
Deep divin
51
this.
games. Famously, I accidentally deleted 3 games off our leaderboard. They have now been restored. So we do have a complete list now, which you can see at multiplayerpodcast.com. So if you're ever kind of curious of maybe what games we recommend, or maybe you're not sure what to pick up, that is a great place to take a look. We have our favorite games at the top, which include things like Overwatch, Apex Legends, Rocket League, Rust, Valheim, Satisfactory, and Outriders, all the way down to the bottom where we have the likes of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Wow, that game's taken a beating.
Yeah.
Halo Reach, Sea of Thieves, Hood Outlaws and Legends, and Overcooked 2. So, Josh, taking a look at our 51 games, Killing Floor 2, what are you thinking about where we would rank this one?
Oh, man. I feel
I'm feeling like it's got to be pretty close to the middle.
I feel like it's square in the middle, to be honest with you. I was looking at the kind of mid-20s. Like, I did equate this game to Warhammer Vermintide 2, which I do feel like it has a lot of similarities in that regard. Borderlands 3 is like a co-op shooter, and I feel like it's somewhere in that range of like the 24 to 29 range, which would put us kind of squarely in the middle of our leaderboard.
Mm-hmm.
My initial thought is I would probably rather play Vermintide 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just, you know me, and see, this is where you and I differ because I love melee combat, and I love a little bit more of like that mystical fantasy setting.
Yeah.
And so I resonate a little bit more with Vermintide 2. I think, you know, they're similar in some ways with that like casual horde-based Slaughterfest.
Sure.
So it's just like a preference thing. You know what I mean? Like, I know you don't like melee combat, and I know when you hit the wall with Vermintide 2, you really hit the wall.
See, I thought when Vermintide came out, Left 4 Dead was a little bit fun, but somewhat serious. And I felt like Vermintide was off the deep end with the silliness because we're literally fighting rats. And then I feel like Killing Floor even just goes beyond that and just makes it so silly, but it's so much more satisfying to me to complete waves in Killing Floor. I was thinking it would be in the early 20s. We've got our bonkers rating of Stardew Valley at 21, which is crazy. I would definitely put this below that. I think this is going to be in the Far Cry 5 Raft arena. I would have it above Vermintide 2, which we have at 24. So you're kind of thinking mid to late 20s, and I'm early 20s.
I could be convinced. I mean, I prefer the melee and Vermintide 2, but I get Killing Floor has a little something, that humor, the gunplay. I could see it resonating. Factor. You know what I mean? Right. It has a little bit more of that it factor. Now, if you're like me and you love fantasy settings and melee, then Vermintide 2 is going to stand out more, you know? But I'm fine putting it above Vermintide 2 if you want, just because I get that it may have that little bit of a draw to more people.
And it has more replayability. You've got 10 classes. Vermintide, you've only got 4. And honestly, there's far fewer weapon choices. I feel like Killing Floor's got the edge because of that, even if you prefer the fantasy setting. So are you thinking just one above Vermintide?
I mean, well, the question is, then you get into Far Cry 5, which I know you like a lot.
Yeah,
Raft was a great co-op experience. So would you put it above either of those?
I'd probably put it above Raft, but I can't personally put it above Far Cry 5. So
that's fine. So put it at 23.
23? So we'll put it between Far Cry 5 and Raft.
Yeah, because you're saying you can't put it above Far Cry 5, which I get. Yeah. Like, you know, honestly, I get that. And then Raft is a great game, but it's just completely different, and it's only 2-player, whereas this has 6 people.
And it's
Raft
so limited
is much
story.
more involved, you know, that kind of stuff too. So I think that's a fair spot for it.
Yeah, the one thing that I wish we had more of a chance to do is to dive into the Steam Workshop. I have no idea what kind of stuff is on there, but I would imagine the fact that they adopted some of the user-created content to be official tells me there's probably a whole wealth of stuff in there also.
Oh, and I'm sure some of it's amazing.
I bet. The fact that they put in like lightsabers and stuff, I can only imagine what some of the content must be like. So just keep in mind, this is Josh and I solely basing our thoughts here on the base game on its own merits.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll lock it in, Josh. That works for me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair spot for it. It's a fun game, man.
Yeah, it really is. Any closing thoughts on the matter? Anything else that we would tell the people about Killing Floor?
No, it's up to 6-person, which is really nice. I'm honestly getting kind of tired of this 3-man squad type game, you know?
Right.
And so it is kind of nice to say, hey, if you've got, you know, 4 or 5 friends that you want to play with, I mean, I got this game for $4, man.
What a steal.
You know what I mean? Like, I could buy all of my friends and have a pre-made squad for $25 worth. That is a great deal for a game that you're going to get a lot of hours of fun out of. And so honestly, I'm really thankful to Jake for suggesting this one, because this is not a game that you and I ever would have chosen to review. Not. And so I love the fact that we got a chance to play it. We got a chance to talk about it. I like that we got to play it with Jake. You know, there's going to be people out there that are going to look into this game now, hopefully have some fun with it. And it's cheap, man. It's not every day that you can recommend a game that's fun like this one and is only a few dollars to purchase.
Yeah. And we're not just sucking up to Jake because he's a legendary supporter. Like, legitimately, we would tell you if we didn't enjoy this game.
Absolutely.
And it's just a lot of fun. Yeah.
I got no qualms saying what I think about something, but it was legitimately a good selection.
Yeah, it really was. All right. Well, once again, we'd like to ask you guys to think about supporting the show. You can do that at multiplayersquad.com or through Apple Podcasts. If you want to come hit us up on any social media, you can find us everywhere at Multiplayer Pod, and we have our free Discord server. We'd love to have you come join us. Very user-friendly, completely free. All you got to do is download the Discord app, or you can use it on desktop. There is a link in the episode description. You can come socialize with other people who love the show. You can give us suggestions for future games, submit questions for bonus round episodes. We'd love to hear from you guys. So come hit us up there, and we will have our next episode on Thursday for This Week in Gaming. So have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you in a couple days.
All right. See you, everybody.